Chapter 142. Face to Face. Wei Ran took a step forward, not feeling any relief in his heart but more heavy on the contrary. It is impossible for Challenges丨to retreat like this. Before, because of the strafing attack and the aliens' attack, the sand was flying all over the sky, and the vision was blurred. I could only see that the first wave did not hit the alien and was retreating into the sandy chaos. Jiang Nanfeng and Su would not think that Challenges丨came here with great fanfare, but left without doing anything. Suddenly, the aliens split into two ways and attacked on both sides, intending to lengthen and disperse the laser scanners at the gate, but considering that there were very few laser scanners in the middle, there was a vacancy. At this time, a group of aliens flew out of the sand and dust with black wings and gathered in the gap in the middle, heading straight to the observation deck in the south. Jiang Nanfeng remained calm in the face of danger and pressed the communication device to contact Li Ningxia. Professor Li, call out the mobile team. Li Ningxia responded, okay, the mobile team has been activated. A flying machine similar to a drone, which is also a type of laser weapon, is mainly aimed at air combat. Because it can automatically change the position according to the target's whereabouts, it is named Mobile Team. Hundreds of mobile teams flew over and fired light blue lasers in front of Wei Ran and the others to stop the flying aliens from advancing. In the deadlocked situation, another group of aliens ran out from there. This time they were speed aliens. Seeing that the lightning-fast alien is about to go under the city wall. The nick of time. Wei Ran picked up the hand formula and used the body-holding technique. Jiang Nanfeng summoned a rain of sharp ice blades, smashing towards the immobilized aliens on the ground, annihilating them all. Bang! Bang! Wei Ran and the others followed the prestige and suddenly the sky was filled with smoke. Jiang Nanfeng's face froze slightly. Smoke cannon. This is the same kind of smoke bomb that was often used in the past, but as the name suggests, the cannon is thicker than the bomb and has a wider range. It can even affect the vision range up to 1 kilometer in diameter. 1 kilometer sounds like a good distance, but for Wei Ran and the others defending the city, they will become very passive because they can't make a decision on the next step because they can't see the battle situation. Fortunately, the laser scanners on the city wall and the mobile team don't need a clear line of sight. They just adapt to the environment and automatically switch sensors to accurately confirm the position of the target. But Challenges丨's wave of deduction first scattered the firepower of the city wall on both sides, attracted the aliens flying in the air, then attacked the aliens according to the speed of the row, and finally used the smoke cannon to confuse the line of sight. Boom. Boom. The sound of knocking on the door warned Wei Ran that many of them had taken advantage of the smoke to come to the dark gate made of special metal on the city wall. Wei Ran looked at the smog and his face was covered with haze. He is trying to force us out. Challenges丨knows that as long as we are in the base, he won't get any advantage. Jiang Nanfeng listened to the voice, called out the ice cone, solved the wave, but soon the next wave of aliens will come up. Yan Yang also summoned the giant vines she specially planted in front of the base to strangle, but the giant vines kept coming in waves just after they were twisted. After all, they are not god-level Muzikun, who can precisely control them just by relying on consciousness induction. But Wei Ran and the others could only act by listening to the movement. Su Yuyi thought about something and looked at Wei Ran. Xiao Ran, can you use your ability to release control now? Wei Ran shook her head. No. It should be because his level is higher than mine. I can't remove it. I will try. It's over. Bang. Come. At this time, another smoke cannon was fired from the sky. At this time, Challenges丨's cold voice sounded again. Xiao Ran, I have a lot of smoke cannons. If you don't come out, I will keep sending them out. Also, the gate of the southern border base is really hard. I don't think it can withstand my next wave of metal-powered aliens. What do you think? Wei Ran still fired in the direction of the sound, followed by a small explosion. She pondered for a while, then turned her eyes and asked Jiang Nanfeng, I've heard you say that the smoke cannon explodes in the air, so its weakness is that it will affect the ground less. Instead of answering, she asked, do you want to go out? Wei Ran nodded slightly, looked in Cheng Shuxian's direction and said gloomily, "If Chen Wei were here, we would still have a choice. But it's definitely not good for us if the current situation continues like this. Choose." The people below are those who know the wind element but who can use Chen Wei's advanced wind ability. Yes, no one can summon the super advanced wind ability. Su Yi also agreed with Wei Ran's decision. At this time it's not the best strategy to stay here, we have to go out and fight. Originally, Zhang Nanfeng also thought that he couldn't stay here, so he and Su Yi went out to clear the obstacles. But Wei Ran spoke out first. But he looked at Wei Ran hesitantly. "But you, Xiao Ran." Wei Ran's bright eyes were firm. "Don't worry, I know that I am not a striker, but I have to be behind you, because you will know me later, got it?" Zhang Nanfeng was relieved after hearing this sentence, stretched out his hand to direct the front, and shouted, "Okay, then our family will go out and meet them." Because there are still aliens constantly hitting in front of the door, so Wei Ran asked Xiao Bai to fly down with them. Before taking off, Su Yi told Gao Ding to pay attention to the signal light. As soon as it was signaled, it was time to open the door and attack. They will choose to come down first. Apart from the fact that there are aliens hitting the door below, there is also a reason, because the laser scanners on the city wall and the mobile team are intelligently identifying the core personnel. Therefore, even if Wei Ran and the others were within range, these weapons would avoid them and would not be accidentally injured. Others can't. After going down to the ground, it is indeed much clearer than the sight line from the observation deck. At least you can see the four sides clearly. Zhang Nanfeng summoned a giant ice blade to deal with the aliens in front of the base gate, and said the smoke cannon is actually used to confuse the sight in the air, and when the smoke is hit upwards it will generally float upwards, so the bottom will be clearer instead. Su Yi said a little excitedly, "To be honest, I actually wanted to come down a long time ago." He turned to the left to attack the group of aliens, and punched them down in the air. The alien had been beaten to a bloody mess. Yan Yang summoned giant vines to follow her, and the blessing of supernatural powers turned the vines' heads into sharp spikes and rushed forward. Fortunately, Yi moved these giant vines back for me to plant, and they can be a good gatekeeper for the base. Because Wei Ran knew that her ability was not used as a striker, she wanted to make sure that she would not be dragged by Su Yi and the others. In the case of hind legs, she went to ensure their supplies, so she stayed on Xiao Bai's back and did not come down. She looked at the aliens that had all been exterminated. These are all ordinary aliens as. Soon as she finished speaking, a spark rushed towards her. Xiao Bai quickly jumped sideways and dodged easily. Wei Ran and the others looked ahead, and there were dozens of aliens standing or lying down, staring at them. Chapter 143. Cheng Shuxian's wheels fought against. Jiang in front, Su Yi and Yan Yang slowly retreated and approached Wei Ran as the center. Wei Ran looked further on Xiao Bai's back and said, "These dozens of aliens with supernatural powers are just the first dish. There was also an endless black of aliens behind." Zhang Nanfeng asked Lining Dangxia to turn off the weapons on the city wall of the gate, but the laser strafers on the other city walls were still activated, and the mobile team was still guarding in the air. Su Yi fired a flare. Immediately, the black gate of the base opened, and 2,000 guards ran out in one order and stayed behind them. The gate of the southern border base was closed again. Wei Ran and the others looked serious. Even though Zhang Nanfeng and Su Yi Yingning are already difficult for people to climb, but on the opposite side are aliens mutated by supernatural beings, and the most important thing is that there are few people. So, it's an uphill battle. The aliens leading in the front let out low growls. The sudden attack of the alien behind was about to enter the edge of the safe range. The air instantly condensed into a huge ice layer and flew towards the alien at a high speed. After pushing the opposite sex out of the safe range of the base, the ice immediately froze the aliens in front of them into ice blocks. Su Yi shouted, "Listen, guards, your mission today is not to let these scumbags get close to the gate of the base. Brothers, this is the first test for you to join the guards. Let's see who is the brave and who is the coward today." Gao Dinggao raised his hand holding the laser gun and shouted, "Always be a brave man, not a coward." The guards followed suit and shouted, "Always be a brave man. Don't be a coward." The passionate voice seemed to resonate in every corner of the southern border base. Inspiring. Morale is high. None of the guards flinched under Su Yi's waved command to lead and kill the enemy first, and rushed forward bravely to the alien who started to attack again. The guards don't have any strategic skills now, they just fight to complete the task. At the same time that the guards summoned their powers, a rain of icy blue sparkling and crystal clear petals suddenly fell from the sky. Both Gao Ding and the guards found that their power levels had suddenly increased to 50%. Most of them are quite familiar with this kind. From time to time in the past few months, there will be a beautiful flower petal rain in the base, which is the purification technique Wei Ran summoned to clear the polluted land. The guards became even more heroic and fierce, killing the aliens like a formidable force. Jiang Nanfeng and Su Yi Yining were astonished. Chapter 144. The person she knew well, Wei Ran stopped the alien in front of her to delay the time, turned to Su Yi and said eagerly, "I can't support so many people in a row. Let the defense team go back." Su Yi immediately shouted at Gao Ding in front of him, "Gao Ding, take the guards back to the base to guard in case there is an alien invasion." Although Gao Ding can't make a name for himself in Beijing, and he is not a good person, he will not just leave people behind to save his life. Said, "No, Mr. Cheng set up the guard team to be able to play forward in such a critical time. If I run away, then how can I stand up in front of Mr. Chen? The guard team is not a coward. Come on." At this time, the alien who is good at crawling turned over the immobilized alien and jumped a few meters to this side. It was meaningless to retreat again, so Gao Ding rushed forward with his men and attacked head-on. The previous blessing technique still expired in 10 minutes. So Wei Ran could only deploy the blessing technique again, but this time the blessing range was only enough for 1/3 of the people. The ability is bloody again. This time the nosebleed continued, and the corners of the mouth also overflowed with blood. The internal injury of the body has reached the point of serious internal bleeding. But because of the painkillers, Wei Ran didn't feel the slightest pain, but her body became duller and her consciousness began to trance and she couldn't concentrate. She randomly took out a few hemostatic pills, crushed them, mixed them with the power recovery water and swallowed them. Suddenly, a strange shape flashed from the left and slammed into Xiao Bai, and Wei Ran also fell to the ground heavily due to the momentum. Roar! Xiao Bai raised his claws angrily and tore the alien into pieces, then returned to guard Wei Ran. Yan Yang was the closest to Wei Ran, and when she saw Wei Ran fall to the ground, she immediately let the vines open the way to Wei Ran, and Wei Ran happened to stand up by herself. But then Yan Yang's face changed. Because Wei Ran's face was covered with blood, she hurriedly held her hand and asked, "What's wrong with you, Xiao Ran?" Wei Ran pretended to be relaxed and said, "It's nothing, I just fell on my nose when I fell down." She touched her nose and said with a smile, "Fortunately, the nose is real, otherwise it will be miserable. Where can I find a beauty hospital? Plastic surgery." Yan Yang took a serious look at Wei Ran and didn't see anything unusual, so she breathed a sigh of relief. "That's good." Wei Ran saw a few aliens coming behind Yan Yang. She pushed Yan Yang away, turned into an ice blue long whip and swung it vigorously. 4 or 5 aliens broke into pieces instantly. Seeing that her supernatural powers were the same, Yan Yang was completely relieved. At this time, artillery fire was everywhere, mixed with attacks of various supernatural powers, and the bombardment continued. Jiang Nanfeng asked Professor Li to send a drone to launch a laser attack on the aliens that had not yet attacked. But he could only attack for a while and then flew back, because Challenges丨soon fired the smoke cannon again, and the sight in the air was once again blocked. Challenges丨is too cunning. Although he was staying at a distance of 5 kilometers, he must not use lethal weapons, shells and explosives, because once it explodes at his position, the impact will spread to the southern border base. During these agonizing 3 hours, because Wei Ran seized the time to deploy the blessing technique. And because of the frequent use of the blessing technique, the blessing became weaker and weaker, and the last blessing technique had expired half an hour ago. Nearly half of the 2,000 guards were lost. Su Yi said to Gao Ding again, "Take the guards back to the base to defend, in case the aliens mix into the base." Gao Ding said something but was interrupted by Su Yi sharply. "This is an order. If the front is lost, there must be someone in the base to defend." Gao Ding was hoarse, and could only shout "Red-eyed received." Immediately under the cover of Jiang Yanfeng and Su Yi Yaning, Gao Ding led the rest of the defense team back to the base. Jiang Nanfeng and Su Yi repeatedly summoned advanced skills. Although they had supernatural powers to restore water and functions, they couldn't hold back the continuous attacks of the aliens, and they were exhausted. Moreover, although frequent drinking of power recovery water will restore the power, it will make the power in a state of exhaustion, causing the power of the power to be greatly halved. Wei Ran took painkillers one after another to suppress herself. Her overdrawn body was already numb, and now she couldn't feel any sensation at all. Wei Ran forced himself to concentrate as the smoke and dust flew. If the drone can't go, then she will go. She took out the explosives from the equipment bag and called Xiao Bai, and jumped onto Xiao Bai's back. Xiao Bai's back. Xiao Bai flew ahead. Jiang Nanfeng shouted, "Where are you going, Xiao Ran?" Wei Ran held the bundled laser ammunition in her arms in the middle of the night. He felt cold. "I'm going to give Cheng Shuxian some good things." Then Xiao Bai and her suddenly disappeared before everyone's eyes. After a while, a faint explosion sounded in the distance. Wei Ran ran to Cheng Shuxian's car and dropped the bundle of laser bombs in his arms with precision. The car below and a large area of aliens waiting to attack nearby were blasted into solution by the laser. If you can't use powerful weapons, then turn 0 into positive, and blow up Cheng Shuxian so that the aliens will not target the southern border as a single target. Xiao Bai took Wei Ran back to Jiang Nanfeng, and they were invisible above them. She couldn't bear to watch them struggling below. Yan Yang summoned plants to strangle the passing aliens. Su Yi blinked and attacked the aliens who surrounded him. Jiang Nanfeng summoned ice to attack continuously. It's just that everyone's abilities can't summon advanced skills. If this goes on like this, she will soon be unable to sustain it. Even the ability recovery water she drank several times just now can only recover half of it. At this time, Cheng Shuxian's voice sounded again. "Xiao Ran, thought this would blow me up to death. He. How could I die like this? How could I be willing to die before you came to my side? There are too many, as many as you want. It depends on how many Sharon you can kill." Boom. Wei Ran killed that disgusting voice with a few more shots. Wei Ran hardened her heart. Supporting Xiao Bai's back with his right hand, he jumped up. The breeze brushed her in a black loose suit, the wet hair on her forehead fluttered slightly, and her eyes were clear and tough. Both hands quickly switched cumbersome hand formulas, muttering incantations in their mouths, and finally clenched their hands, palms turned inward suddenly, then raised their hands up, and then suddenly down. A reciprocating curse. All of a sudden, red circular totems covered with incantations appeared on the ground where Jiang Yanfeng and Su Yue Yingying were standing respectively. Red shone around them, and Jiang Nanfeng and the others instantly felt their bodies light and exhausted, and their abilities reinfused them with strength. The state of the whole person is as if he had just fought hard and never existed. With the disappearance of the red totem, Wei Ran finally exhausted her abilities, lost consciousness and fell to the ground. Roar Xiao Bai roared in shock and flew towards Wei Ran. "Little Ran." Su Yi teleported under Wei Ran and waited. Wei Ran finally landed on a hard and warm chest. There was also a cool and calm breath lingering around her. Chapter 145. The esoteric meaning of mental consciousness control is booming. The sudden, loud noise of the aircraft engine keeps circling the sky looking for a place with a good line of sight to land. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind swept away the smoke. "Brother Cheng." Jiang Nanfeng and the others cheered. Wei Ran, who was unconscious, was still muttering brother. Mu Zikeng, who was holding her, disappeared from the air, and then appeared in front of Jiang Nanfeng and the others. After getting clear, the two planes stopped at the desert in front, neatly equipped, and quickly ran out of the cabin to carry out Mu Zikeng's order before departure. As soon as it hit the ground, it immediately formed an encirclement and fast brake to win. Mu Zikeng kissed her sweat-soaked forehead, and there were still spots of blood on her little face. Gently patted her thin and firm back, and then murmured in her ear, Ran, be good. My brother is here. Wei Ran seemed to hear his whisper, and her unconscious but still tense body gradually softened down. Immediately, he slowly opened his eyelids to reveal that his cold eyes were full of gloominess, and there was no trace of the tenderness that just gently coaxed Wei Ran. The whole person was shrouded in layers of haze, and the surrounding air seemed to be in severe cold, which made people shudder. More than 2,000 aliens around were all coming towards them at this time. Mu Zikeng narrowed his eyes coldly. An invisible impact force ejected all the attacking aliens dozens of meters away. Boom, 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 boom. The more than 2,000 aliens exploded into ashes one after another. Even in the distance, there were still constant explosions. The icy and cold Mu Zikeng made another one-handed pinch. 5 kilometers away in the desert, the wind and sand surged and suddenly gathered dozens of sand giants. Although the giants looked bulky, but because of the blessing of Mu Zikeng's superpower, they were actually brave and light, and they would stay in the desert with great sensitivity. Alien annihilation. Sand control technique. At this time, under Su Yi's teleportation, Yan Ying joined Gu Ming and Chen Wei, and was also calling out her sand control technique, but when she saw the dozens of sand giants, she was shocked for a moment. This is something Yan Ying can't do. Even if sandstone control is her auxiliary ability, she must be on the scene to summon it. And because it is an auxiliary, the lethality is far less than her main ability plant control system. But Mu Zikeng can use the control of consciousness to combine any ability into the main ability, and he can also do it as if he was on the scene. He has thoroughly penetrated the profound meaning of spiritual consciousness control, which is also the realm of the strongest spiritual consciousness. Do whatever you want, without being bound. Yan Yang murmured, it's too strong. Jiang Nanfeng summoned a super advanced skill to knock down his alien, then turned around and laughed. Finally, someone understands that Brother Cheng used my ice-type high-level the mood of the skills. How can it be summed up by shock? Chen Wei said, there is another me. The laser drones in the base were once again dispatched quickly and flew forward to cooperate with Gu Ming and their extermination. The remaining aliens appear to have been ordered to retreat. There's no need to chase Gu Ming, and the others still wanted to chase, but Mu Zikeng teleported to them to stop them. Jiang Nanfeng asked doubtfully, why? Mu Zikeng's pitch-black eyes were covered with ice-cold eyes, looking in the direction of the aliens' retreat. Gu Ming saw the pale Wei Ran in Mu Zikeng's arms, and then his eyes fell on Jiang Nanfeng, who was wearing white clothes with several bloodstains, and said coldly, that's all. It's meaningless to chase these aliens. Mu Zikeng's mouth was full of disbelief. Although Cheng Shuxian didn't come today in real body, but blowing up his avatar can also cause actual damage to him. At this time, Su Yi took a handful of weapons similar to a simple bazooka appeared in front of everyone. Grenades. No wonder Mu Zikeng told Gu Ming and the others not to chase after them, because a grenade is powerful enough to be damaged by the violent impact within 5 kilometers. Mu Zikeng deliberately let the aliens escape 5 kilometers away from the southern border base. Mu Zikeng lowered his eyes, stroking Wei Ran's slender arm with his thumb. You can't use a powerful weapon, so let him taste what it's like to be a grenade. Gu Ming, 4 o'clock. With a flash of ruthlessness, he put the grenade into the barrel, carried it on his shoulder, and pulled the trigger directly. No one asked nonsense about how the grenade can still maintain the speed when the alien is already 5 kilometers away. Because the moment the grenade popped out, there was no need to say anything about the astonishing launch speed. Mu Zikeng would never let Cheng Shuxian walk out of this desert safely. His eyes were slightly fierce. I want him, and there will be no return. At the same time. Although Chang Shuxian's clone is not nearby, and there is still a distance from them, but if he wants to manipulate the alien, it is impossible to be too far away from the alien. Chang Shuxian was afraid that he would lose in the end, so he didn't send the only teleporter in the Juchong base to follow the clone. Then when he realized that Mu Zikang was back, he immediately changed his position, but it was too late. Mu Zikang had already locked his position, no matter where he changed to. The rest of the aliens followed his last order to retreat, so a large number of aliens moved towards him. Boost. Got it, leader. In fact, we have already driven out of the safe range. After we get there, we can contact the teleporter to pick you up, leader. Let's make a distance first. Chang Shuxian frowned, urged the driver, but faintly hear the whizzing ballistic sound. Confused, he opened the car window and looked back. A cannonball chased him at high speed, and there was even Mu Zikang's restrained and powerful aura in the wind. His dark eyes reflected the shape of the cannonball. Said those three words viciously: Mu Zichang. Boom. Aum. Following the explosion of the grenade, fireworks bloomed in the sky and the connection was continuous, which was beautiful in an instant. And Chang Shuxian, who was far away at the Juchong base, suddenly interrupted the ability because the avatar transported by the ability was destroyed, causing internal injuries, and swallowed a mouthful of blood, and the ability consumed all the remaining blood. He didn't have Wei Ran's ability to restore water, so the internal injuries and residual blood were enough for him to toss for a long time. With a gloomy face, Chang Shuxian slammed the cup on his desk to the ground and broke it into pieces. Mu Zikang, just wait. Ye Highland. Mu Zikang used consciousness control to gradually calm down her extremely chaotic inner breath. There was a sudden commotion downstairs. Chen Wei said outside the door, Brother Cheng, Su Yi has brought the doctor back. Mu Zikang said with little urgency, let him in quickly. At first Mu Zikang thought that Wei Ran fainted from exhaustion. It was only after returning to the villa with Wei Ran that something was wrong. Although Wei Ran specially set up a treatment room in the villa for convenience and placed a set of medical examination equipment. But no one knew how to use it, so Su Yi immediately teleported to the hospital at the base to catch the best doctor who can treat supernatural beings for examination. Chapter 146. Sleeping Beauty. Su Yi almost lifted the doctor into the door and carried him into the treatment room on the first floor. Go for an examination. When the doctor was put down by Su Yi, his center of gravity was unsteady, and he staggered forward. Oh, I haven't brought anything for the examination yet. Here the next words were taken by Mu Zibear, cold intolerance cut off. What equipment do you need? Here are them. Just this cold sentence made the doctor's heart tremble. Looking back, there are various medical equipment before the eyes. There is a high-grade hospital bed in the middle. On the bed, there is a stern and solemn man holding a pale girl who can still be seen to be delicate and pretty. This room is comparable to a small hospital, with everything you need. Everyone in the southern region knew about today's incident, and now the wounded in the hospital were spreading the word about Wei Ran's miraculous powers today. Of course, he also knew that the injured person was the leader's favorite person. As for where Yiki Island is, at this moment he also understood in his heart who this man is. Not daring to look directly at the aggressive man, he hurried over to take a closer look and said, President Cheng, put Miss Wei down and I'll check on her. Mu Zikang put Wei Ran down gently, stroked putting her face down. When she got up, she saw the doctor holding medical equipment, and she reached out to lift Wei Ran's clothes, but Mu Zikang stopped him first. Mu Zikang frowned slightly, and June looked at him with a cold face. The doctor was a little overwhelmed, and explained intermittently, Cheng. This has to be put into Miss Wei's chest test abdomen to can be checked clearly. Mu Zikang put the detector on the Duan, came over and said only one sentence, I'll do it. You watch the screen. The doctor nodded passively in astonishment. After some inspection. The doctor made a diagnosis. Miss Wei suffered serious internal injuries due to her improper use of her powers, which caused her internal breath to violently collide for a long time. There are still bleeding spots in several places. But the strange thing is that, according to the bleeding spots just now, this is because the bleeding point is more than this small. But anyway, although the bleeding point is small and not large, if it does not stop bleeding, it will be life-threatening. Mu Zikang listened to the doctor's words, although his big hand was stroking the small hand, but Jun's face was even more gloomy and terrifying. Long time? Bleeding point? She was stiffened with painkillers and hemostats. The doctor looked at Mu Zikang's increasingly horrified face, and his voice was much lower, and he didn't dare to take a breath. Miss Wei's ability is too unique. I have never seen it before, and I really don't know the direction of her ability. Let's start by... I just know that her ability energy is exhausted. As for whether she will recover or how long it will take, I have no way of knowing. Mu Zikang nodded. Wei Ran's ability is indeed the only one, which is completely different from other abilities, and it is a relatively supernatural ability. But there was only one thing he cared about from the beginning to the end: when will she wake up? According to the examination of her brain just now, she is still in a deep coma, and I think it will take a few more days. Oh, and also her internal injuries are recovering, and sometimes she will wake up unconsciously with pain after the effect of the medicine wears off. But it's actually just a physical reaction. At that time you just need to feed her the medicine and she can continue to sleep peacefully. Mu Zikang didn't speak for a long time. The doctor stood there and walked away, either to stay or not, so he could only ask anxiously, Mr. Chang, shall I prescribe medicine for Miss Wei when she comes back from the hospital? Also, Miss Wei also needs continuous infusion of nutrient solution while she is in a coma. No need. Mu Zikang finally spoke, always coldly. Just write down the medicine you need and give it to Chen Wei. Don't worry about the rest, you can go out the bury. Doctor was stunned again. Can medicine be produced here? But he knew very well that he kept his mouth shut without asking, and that he could stay away from Mu Zikang's aura, so he quickly opened the door and escaped. If he dared to look directly at Mu Zikang, he would see the pity in Mu Zikang's eyes almost overflowing his eyes. There was only one sentence left in the room: my silly Ran. Mu Zikang carried her back to the bedroom on the 3rd floor. He poured Wei Ran's regular hot spring water into the bathtub in the bathroom, and then used the constant temperature function of the bathtub to heat it up uninterruptedly. He took off her clothes with light hands, wiped her clean first, and then put her in her arms. The wounds healed slowly, visible to the naked eye, and some large wounds took a while to heal. Mu Zikang watched beside her because soaking in the warm water of the hot spring made his pale face turn red again. His complexion was only slightly better. Stretching out his hand to caress her slightly flushed face, he murmured softly, "Just sleep for a few days, don't sleep for too long, or you'll turn into a little fat pig." Wei Ran still didn't respond like a sleeping beauty. Mu Zikang took a small stool and sat down to wet Wei Ran's slightly curly long hair. Brother knows you don't like to go to bed with dirt. I'll wash you and let you sleep well tonight, okay? I washed it for you when you were a child, remember? You wanted to cut your long hair for a while, but I never allowed you to cut it, because you didn't even know the way you stroked your long hair how beautiful. Although Wei Ran didn't respond, he still didn't prevent him from talking to himself. After Mu Zikang tidied up Wei Ran, he pulled off the soft quilt and covered it up. Knock, knock. Yan Ying's voice came from outside the door. Brother Cheng, the medicine is ready. Mu Zikang opened the door and let her in. After watching Yan Yang inject Wei Ran with nutrient solution, he turned and walked out of the room to the study on the 2nd floor. Gu Ming and the others were already waiting for him. Mu Zikang sat behind the dark brown luxurious top-grade pear wood desk. His broad and reliable back slowly leaned against the back of the leather chair, keeping his profile in the dark. Tell me about today's events. Su Yu was the first to arrive at the scene, so he spoke first this morning. Brother Chang, after you left for about an hour, Chang Shexian brought the alien to the base and launched an attack within 5 kilometers. Because he avoided the oasis all the way, and later deliberately let some of the aliens pass through the oasis, so the information fed back by the plants was 2,000 aliens, but the plants also sensed something was wrong, and at the same time they fed back and said more than that the desert really advantages and disadvantages. It can indeed prevent aliens from coming, but at the same time, this desert lacks oasis and lacks surveillance. Afterwards, Zhang Nanfeng continued to talk about the entire battle scene, including Wei Ran's use of supernatural powers to bless everyone and 100% healing of the wounds, returning to a state full of blood. It's just that this timing is too coincidental. As soon as Mu Ziking left, Chang Shuxian came back. Gu Ming snorted coldly. It seems that we were set aside by Chang Shuxian today. Jiang Nanfeng heard the words and asked, "Is the mine fake?" Chen Wei shook his head and said, "No, Chang Shuxian, in order to hold us back, Brother Chang, he used a lot of money. He knows that Brother Chang will teleport. If it is fake, then Brother Chang will definitely return to the base immediately. Only if it is true, can Brother Chang be kept." Su Yi looked at Chen Wei and Gu Ming, asked, "Then how did you come back?" Chapter 147. I want to go back to Chen Wei and take a look at Mu Ziking, who has been silent all this time, and reply, "Brother Chang is used to listening to Xiao Ran's voice when she is not around, so he discovered the situation at the base." Mu Ziking hid in the dark. I don't understand his emotions. Only a cold voice was heard. Today's battle exposed the shortcomings in the base, and they must be written down and rectified immediately. As for the shortcomings of the desert, Su Yi, go to Shangwanling tomorrow morning. I have already told him, and you will know when you go there. Su Yi Ye Yingxia. Mu Ziking paused and continued. Under the siege of nearly 10,000 aliens, you widows are indeed defending very well. Starting tomorrow, all members of the guard team will be able to increase their abilities, strictly train according to the specifications. He leaned forward slowly, his dark profile gradually appeared. Jun's face was light, but his eyes were cold and stern. I want this team to become the most elite striker in the southern border. Blood debt. Wei Ran was trapped in a white world. No matter which way she went, there was no exit. Tired from walking, she simply sat on the ground with her buttocks, raised her hands and shouted helplessly, "Where is this?" At this time, Mu Ziking's deep magnetic and gentle voice came whispering something. She thought it was Mu Ziking who came to look for her, so she quickly got up from the ground and shouted to the surroundings, "Brother, I'm here." But soon she found that Mu Ziking was still talking to himself, should her meaning. After she calmed down, she heard that Mu Ziking was bathing her, washing her hair, and talking about things from her childhood. She was instantly ashamed, for he still remembered making a fuss about washing his hair when she was a child. I also heard a sentence telling her not to sleep for too long. Don't sleep too long? What do you mean? Am I unconscious now? Then why am I so active here, and I can even hear what my brother is saying? Wei Ran covered her cheeks with her hands, and said in horror, "I won't just be like this all the time. I can hear my brother's voice for the rest of my life, and my brother can only live with me as a vegetable. What should I do?" She panicked and looked for the exit again, and after a lot of tossing and turning, she lay down completely and gradually understood what this place was. Although supernatural powers do not need to be high or low to unlock various advanced related skills, if the summoner is not strong enough and insists on holding on, then no matter how powerful the skills are, they will all come back to him. So it was too risky for her to summon the reciprocating spell later on. If she was unlucky, she might lose the power and not be able to restore it. He repeatedly forced himself to bless others, and finally took the risk of using the highest skill to restore Jiang Ninfeng and his team to full health, resulting in a sharp aggravation of their already serious internal injuries. Coupled with the exhaustion of powers, the supernatural powers were activated urgently and fell into a state of self-healing. Deep sleep. As for how long she will sleep, she doesn't know. Sigh. Maybe it will be decades later when I go out. Just when Wei Ran was thinking wildly, Yan Ying's voice came again. "Are you saying you are stupid? You told me that you were bleeding from your nose when you were like that. Fortunately, I learned acupuncture from you for a few days on a whim, but I made you into a hornet's nest. Xiao Ran, you have to wake up quickly." Jishi fell silent again. Wei Ran's clear and pure eyes turned red, shouting again. I want to go back. After Su Yi went out for a few days, he finally returned to the base. He brought back several huge black plants and temporarily threw them in the open space outside the villa. Chen Wei and Jiang Nanfeng gathered around to watch. This thing became more and more familiar. Jiang Nanfeng stroked his chin and thought, why do I seem to have seen this thing somewhere? Chen Wei also agreed. At this time, Gu Ming came over and handed Jiang Nanfeng a glass of juice in his hand. He glanced at the things on the ground and said, it's the giant black thorns in the chaotic world. Nodded, pointed at the black thorns, swallowed the juice and said yes, but why did you come back after doing this? No, how did Su? Why get in and how did he get out? Come out. Isn't General Shengguan magnetically controlled? The magnetic field is like returning home to him. Brother Cheng asked him to take me in, and then pulled out a lot of thorns. Jiang Nanfeng asked, why do you pull out things? Chen Wei didn't take his side. Now fool, what is the chaotic world? It's a barren land. Plants that can survive in it. Brother Cheng wants to grow them in the desert. Jiang Nanfeng snorted, aren't you looking for smoke? Chen Wei replied, you try to smoke one. Jiang Nanfeng still wanted to be poor, but he saw Mu Zikang's cold figure out of the corner of his eyes, and changed the subject. Why are you all standing here? Hurry up and put these in the car and send them to the gate. Let them plant them as soon as possible. After getting along for a long time, they understood what Jiang Nanfeng meant, and then quickly dispersed. Gu Ming drove out a large truck. Su Yi lighted it into the truck. Jiang Nanfeng and Chen Wei secured behind. He left in a flash. Everyone completely forgot that just now Su Yi easily teleported back by himself, and there was no need for a big truck to deliver it. Mu Zikang has been in a cloudy mood for the past few days, because Wei Ran has been in a coma for 3 whole days and has no signs of waking up, so he personally brought the doctor back for further examination. But still the same sentence. Still in a deep coma. But the doctor was shocked by the complete and sophisticated equipment in the treatment room last time, and was shocked again. In just 3 days, the bleeding point has healed, and the internal injury is also recovering rapidly. Mu Zikang was not afraid of other people's suspicion at all. Because Wei Ran's powers had been passed on in the entire base, and she was indeed in full view of everyone, restoring Jiang Nanfeng and the others with full blood. So in this case, the doctor would only attribute all the impossibility to Wei Ran's ability. And the doctor has indeed confirmed and identified it in this way. Mu Zikang would not vent his emotions on others at will, but he exudes a gloomy and severe aura that makes people want to hide when they see it. Mu Zikang didn't go to work on the 15th floor for the past few days, but just stayed with Wei Ran, afraid that when she woke up she wouldn't see him immediately. Mu Zikang took some bodily function recovery water from the basement and took them upstairs. In fact, Wei Ran has not experienced the pain caused by internal injuries that the doctor said these days. It should be because Mu Zikang takes her into the hot spring water in the bathtub on time every day, like 3 meals a day, so he avoids those things that make her feel sick. When it's hard. After pouring the body function recovery water into the nutrient solution, he sat next to her, leaned over and kissed her delicate lips lightly with his cool lips. Then he said softly, Ran, was the most foresighted. Fortunately, you made a treatment room, which also marked the name of the drug, dosage, and treatment direction. Otherwise, I can only put you in the hot spring water 24 hours a day. It's soaking in. Chapter 148. Hug wherever you go. Mu Zikang's slender fingers caressed her eyebrows and eyes, across her fair and delicate cheeks, and gently pinched her tenderness with warm palms. In the past, he was always surrounded by her who was chattering non-stop. Even though he didn't talk much, he still felt very happy. Mu Zikang liked Wei Ran to be around him alone. You have been asleep for the past few days. The room is quiet, the whole villa is also quiet, and no one talks to me. I still want to eat the food you cook, and Chen Wei's cooking is not as good as yours. Then he thought, what's the matter, and chuckled again. Now your reputation in the base is not small, Everyone knows how powerful Madam is. Wei ran over there, retorted angrily when he heard the word Madam. I'm not your wife yet, you haven't proposed to me yet, and I haven't agreed yet. She was silent for a while, then sighed. I can't wait until you marry me, can I? I can only hear your voice, I can't even hug you. Then Mu Ziking said, I'm going to the office building for a meeting. Can Ran stay with my brother? Wei Ran opened her eyes wide. Yuan Xing, this is not good. But Mu Ziking couldn't hear Wei Ran's words, and only wanted to look at Wei Ran all the time. He also asked the doctor. Now Wei Ran's physical signs are normal in all aspects, and her internal injuries are also recovering. It doesn't matter if she moves normally. And staying in the room all the time is not conducive to her waking up, and going outside more often may stimulate her to wake up. After Mu Ziking changed her clothes, he hugged her and went out. When he teleported to the meeting room, the people inside looked at him in surprise as he sat on the leather chair in the chair with Wei Ran in his arms, and then put Wei Ran on his lap. It's like holding a sleeping child pose. These people knew that Wei Ran was injured and was currently recuperating, but they didn't expect the cold-hearted Mu Ziking to be so inseparable from Wei Ran. Do you want to bring it with you to a meeting? Someone thought it was inappropriate to do this in a meeting and tried to say President Chung, this Miss Wei. But as Mu Ziking looked over with a cold look, he immediately changed his mouth. Is it a little cold? It's almost too late now, it's winter. But Mu Ziking's face was not much better, and he said coldly, are you staring at her? This sentence made the people in the meeting room shudder. Mu Ziking's point of concern is that, as long as you mention Wei Ran, you have an opinion on the most precious person in his arms, and he, Mu Ziking, will be very upset. The man quickly shook his head and waved his hands in denial. No, the sea. Meeting was silent and trembling for a while. Except for being a little gentle towards Wei Ran, Mu Ziking was fierce and forceful towards everyone. In fact, most of the people in this conference room were left behind by Shang Wanling when he was in power. Originally, after the day of the turmoil at the base meeting, as people in various departments were continuously dismissed and even expelled from the base, they were uneasy for a few days, fearing that they would be the next one. But what I imagined didn't come for a long time. On the contrary, after the notification of the adjustment of positions, some people were even able to get to high positions, and they deserved the same treatment. In fact, Mu Ziking just didn't talk nonsense and just told them with actions that if they behaved themselves they would get what they deserved. But Mu Ziking and Shang Wanling are completely different people. Although Shang Wanling is also a person who is not angry, arrogant, and reticent, he is completely different from Mu Ziking. He still makes people feel that he is still a living person with affection and passion. But Mu Ziking made people feel domineering no matter in terms of his supernatural power level or his resolute and ruthless style of acting. He was so perfect that people dared not look directly at him, but at the same time made people want to submit unconsciously. So where did these people dare to say anything? They all lowered their heads and waited until Mu Ziking said that the meeting had started. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and the oppressive aura lingering in the meeting room was finally dissipated. In the white world, Wei Ran covered her face with her hands. Although he didn't see that scene, he could still know how Mu Ziking held the comatose her and held the departmental meeting calmly without changing his face. You must know that she never showed up at all, not to mention departmental meetings, and even accompanied him to the office. She seldom stepped out of the office door. So the office building actually only knew this person to her, and not many people knew what he looked like, but now he actually appeared in front of everyone in this way. She wants to cry but has no tears. I'm in a coma, I don't know anything. After Shang Guanling came out of the lair that day, Xiao Li immediately reported the matter to him, and he contacted Mu Ziking immediately, and Mu Ziking followed. He said it had been resolved, so Shang Guanling gave up the idea of returning to the base. In addition, Mu Ziking told him about the chaotic world, so now he is more interested in that side. What Su Yui brought back was only a few plants, and the whole cargo plane was still on the way back in the air. Su Yui thought about coming back first to see if he could survive. And when they planted all the giant thorns in the desert, it really looked like a chaotic world. It may be because of the harsh environment in the barren and chaotic world, so it is a trivial matter for desert survival. It was just planted here, and it survived not long after. Immediately afterwards, Yan Ying noticed something strange. It doesn't seem right. When there is no wind, it will swing slightly at will. Jiang Nanfeng and the others took a closer look. Yan Yang tried to control it, but she didn't expect to be able to control it. Why do you become obedient? Because it has a strong consciousness. Mu Zikang suddenly appeared in front of them, still holding Wei Ran in his arms. Gu Ming and the others looked at Mu Zikang. Brother Cheng. Mu Zikang gently put Wei Ran into the back seat of the business car parked next to him, then put the seat flat, and went to the back of the car to take it out. A thin blanket covers her. Chen Wei and the others are used to seeing Mu Zikang hugging Wei Ran around in the past few days. If they don't see him hugging Wei Ran at this time, they will feel strange. He stroked her hand again, then turned around and said in a calm manner, "These thorns have stayed in the chaotic world for many years, and they have become fine due to the influence of the magnetic field inside. Before you couldn't control it, it was because of the chaos. The world restricts your ability, and because it has a strong sense of discrimination, it will weigh its own advantages and disadvantages." These words surprised Yan Yang and the others. Chen Wei pointed to a giant black thorn next to him, opened his mouth, and finally said, "Does this mean that this dark thing will know how to judge the situation? This kind is most suitable for guarding the door of the house?" Hearing this, Guing immediately became interested in the thorn, and suddenly drew out the knife behind his waist and slashed it off. Fine branches. But in an instant, new branches grew on the side of the cut-off branches. Even if it is uprooted, the underground crisscross root system can still continue to grow. Chapter 149. Wei Ran, who was rolling on the ground. Eihe Island, at night. Chen Wei brought out a pot of Buddha jumping walls stewed for 2 days. Jiang Nanfeng smelled the fragrance and led him over. "What day is it today?" "Chen Wei, you actually did Buddha jumping over the wall. Usually you are not willing to do it." "This pot is not simple, the process is cumbersome, and the heat needs to be controlled constantly. A very thoughtful dish." So Chen Wei only did it 3 times. Su Yi blurted out, "Xiao Ran loves this the most. Every time she smells it she can't walk and she's still." He suddenly realized what he said, and quickly raised his hand to bite his hand to stop. He opened his eyes in fright, and looked at Jiang Nanfeng in the same fright. At this moment, Mu Zikang carried Wei Ran down the stairs. Su Yui hid behind Jiang Nanfeng, and Jiang Nanfeng hid behind Gu Ming inexplicably. Mu Zikang heard what Su Yi said just now, but he didn't show any emotion. He put Wei Ran on a long rattan chair covered with a white velvet blanket like fragile porcelain, and covered her with a thin quilt. Then he turned around and walked to the dining table with long legs, picked up a bowl of soup filled with Buddha's jumping wall, and took an empty plate full of vegetables, and put it on the small wooden coffee table next to Wei Ran. Then he sat down calmly at the head of the table without saying a word. Others don't know why. At this moment, Chen Wei came out from the kitchen after work, and Jiang Nanfeng and others surrounded him. Mu Zikang's strange behavior had already worried Gu Ming, so he asked first, "Brother Cheng, what's wrong?" Chen Wei followed Mu Zikang almost every day, so he knew it clearly, not only clearly but also the details. Someone inadvertently said in front of Brother Cheng that if you use something you like to seduce, it may help the coma, so Brother Cheng asked me to make Sharon's favorite food to try. Oh, Jiang Nanfeng and the others looked clear. Using something you like to stimulate your recovery. Let me tell you earlier, isn't this an easy thing to do? Look at me. Jiang Nanfeng took a bowl of Buddha jumping over the wall after speaking, and dragged a stool to sit next to Wei Ran. Holding the bowl in one hand and stirring the soup with a small spoon in the other, the rich aroma filled Wei Ran's surroundings. "Xiao Ran, do you know what this is? This is the Buddha jumping over the wall you've been thinking about day and night. You can smell it." He deliberately brought the bowl closer to her, and said, "Smell it. Let me tell you, this time Chen Wei still has it. I added a lot of ingredients in it." He stuffed a mouthful into his mouth and chewed. "It's a pity you can't eat it. At the same time, Wei Ran sighed. Wei Ran, who was trapped, couldn't smell the scent and didn't even know what they were doing and what they were eating, but thanks to Jiang Nanfeng, it was clear now. Wei Ran has been trapped for more than 10 days. She doesn't know how time passes, and she won't be hungry even if she doesn't need to eat. She can only know where the time is by listening to Musicing's work and rest. The only thing I do every day is to wander around and listen to the movement outside to pass the boredom. But unexpectedly, Jiang Yanfeng started a live broadcast in front of her. At this time, she scolded Jiang Yanfeng, "You are finished. Let me tell you, the first thing I do after I go out is to lock your mouth and make you not eat for 3 days and 3 nights. Here new live members join too. You can't do this, you have to pass it under the nose so that she can smell it. Aye, it might be better if we each have a bowl. Yes, I think this is a good idea. It's better to feed her directly, one bite is more direct." The conversation between these few people made Wei Ran gnash her teeth. This group of people happily eats my favorite things when I'm not around. Is this the fragility of feelings in the face of time? Fortunately, I still have brother stays with me wholeheartedly. Just as he finished speaking, a sentence came from the other side. I'll feed her directly. Wei Ran was so excited that she fell to the ground like a child, kicking her legs wildly. My brother bullied me too. Musicing thought maybe let her taste it. There is nothing to eat these days, it is all hanging nutrient solution. Suddenly, Yan Yang exclaimed. Zhao Ran's finger moved. Su Yi and the others just got up and wanted to make way for Musicing, but they turned back immediately after hearing Yan Yang's words, staring at Wei Ran intently. Finger. And Musicing hurried over but didn't see any movement from Wei Ran, thinking that Yan Yang had made a mistake. Wei Ran's small mouth was slightly pursed, as if she had suffered some great grievance. Musicing held Wei Ran softly and rubbed it tightly, extremely gentle. He thought that Wei Ran was about to wake up, but at this time the quiet and fair little face showed no sign of waking up. Instead, he thought of a possibility. Ran heard us talking, didn't she? At this moment, her tightly clenched thumb moved slightly. That tiny movement was too weak, and would be ignored if you didn't pay attention, but it had already been captured by Musicing. His handsome face seemed to instantly melt. Layers of coldness, tenderness appeared on his face, and his eyes were full of joy that was lost and found, and he kissed the tightly clenched little hand. The room on the 3rd floor. Musicing took the power recovery water mixed with red fruit and squeezed it into juice and fed it to Wei Ran. But this one is very embarrassing, because Musicing took a sip and then stuck it on her lips to give it to her. After feeding the last mouthful, he also lightly sucked her lips. Thumb wiped the juice that spilled from her mouth. The slender fingers of the bone fingers brushed the broken hair that fell on the cheeks back to the ears, and whispered, Ran is angry tonight, right? But this is the first time that my brother is very happy because I feel angry with Ran. Because I knowing that Ran has actually been awake all the time. He thought of something, and chuckled. You put a curse on yourself before so that no one can control you and explore you, but why did you block your brother? Otherwise my brother already knew that you were not unconscious these days and he didn't need to stimulate you to wake you up. Speaking of the forbidden curse, she wanted to slap herself. Why did she do such a stupid thing at that time? Musicing went to bed and put Wei Ran in front of his chest, and took her little hand to hold it. Ran, still are you there? The little hand moved slightly again. His heart was completely relieved. It's fine, don't worry about when you wake up, your consciousness is clear, you can move your hands now, and the day of real sobriety is not far away. If he paused and continued, don't be afraid, as long as you are by my side, the best result will be the best result. There are some things that Musicing didn't say out loud. If he can't wake up for the rest of his life, then as long as he can guard you, Wei Ran, it will be the happiest thing in his life for Musicing. Regardless of whether the method of stimulation is really effective, it was a coincidence, but it was indeed at that time that Wei Ran was excited. There is no doubt about it. So whoever provided this method was rewarded with a mountain of supplies. When that person was hit by these supplies, he was stunned. I couldn't believe it was real. Although the material was very tempting, I wanted to refuse it. After all, he only said a word or two. Because that person is the team leader of Jiang Nanfeng's information program team, the supplies were delivered by Jiang Nanfeng himself. Jiang Nanfeng said with a serious face, "Mr. Chang doesn't like to owe others. We'll settle it after you take these supplies. Or do you want more?" The man shook his head violently. "I don't have any." Jiang Nanfeng smiled. He nodded and said something seriously. "Thank you." Chapter 150. Muziking's deepness. During this period of time, Muziking was even more reluctant to leave Wei Ran. He almost pinned her on his trouser waist. That night, Muziking soaked Wei Ran in the constant temperature hot spring water in the bathtub as usual. The bathroom was filled with mist, and Muziking also lay down and hugged Wei Ran from behind. He said grandly that he would give Wei Ran a good bath, but rubbing the soft flesh around her waist gave birth to a bit of sweetness scattered in the air. Inside. He chuckled softly and magnetically. "It's only been half a month since I've grown a little flesh, so it feels better to rub it this way." Since the last time I found out that she was conscious all the time, Muziking consulted a doctor, and the doctor replied that she had already fully recovered due to internal injuries. So I can feed some liquid food to supplement nutrition. So Muziking would cook all kinds of soup himself for every meal every day, and then feed her into her mouth. There are also various healthcare products left by Wei Ran in the basement to help the body maintain its level. Muziking mixes them with water every day without getting tired of feeding them. Therefore, when others are in a coma, they will lose weight and have sallow skin, but Wei Ran has always had a rosy complexion, and there are signs of a little fat. Wei Ran, who was trapped, heard that there seemed to be flesh in her waist and covered her waist with her hands crossed, shocked. "No way. You can still gain weight like this, it's over. How much soup did you drink?" "Enough is enough, brother." 5. In the morning. The winter morning is already a bit chilly. Muziking dressed Wei Ran in slightly thicker clothes, put on a pink cap with cat ears, put on sneakers for her, picked her up gently, picked up a large backpack, and disappeared into the room. Wei Ran inside heard the movement, probably guessed it was still early, and wondered, "Where is brother taking me?" Then when it appeared on a higher mountain peak, it was already daylight. Muziking opened the backpack with consciousness control, and a neatly folded mat floated out and then automatically spread out on an open space. He took Wei Ran to sit in, put her in front of his arms, and hugged her from behind, letting her nestle comfortably in his warm chest. A blanket floated to his hand, and he pulled it over, wrapping Wei Ran tightly so that no air could escape. Muziking lowered his eyes and whispered in her ear, "Didn't you tell me that you really want to be here? Do you want to watch the sunrise from the top of the highest mountain in the south?" "So, my brother took me to watch the sunrise." Wei Ran knew that Muziking had brought her to the moment she had longed for so much. "I used to watch TV dramas like that, where the male and female protagonists hug each other and wait for the sunrise, which is very romantic and I like it very much." But the reason why I didn't go is because Wei Ran said that she wanted to watch the sunrise, but she was very honest physically. Every time Muziking asked her to get up, she was reluctant to get up and miss it again and again. Muziking pressed his face against her profile and murmured, "You little lazy pig. I used to tell you not to get up. I finally came today and you are still asleep." "But it's okay, brother, it's the same with your eyes if I take you to see it together." "The sun hasn't come out yet, but the sky is already getting brighter." He looked at his watch. "We'll see it in about 10 minutes. Suddenly, the previous picture flashed before his eyes and a warm smile was on the corner of his usually cold grin. "I still remember when you came home with your parents. I came back from the outside, and the moment you smiled at me like a candy and called you brother, it was like the sunshine in the spring breeze shaking me. I said to myself, I want Wei Ran to keep this innocence forever. As for when I fell in love with you later." He paused, pondering. Looking at the fish-white sky in the distance with her dark eyes, she seemed to be thinking about the answer and said softly, "Maybe it was when you clinged to me and acted like a baby to me. Or maybe it was when you suddenly looked back and smiled that morning. Maybe it was the only "how dare you" chirp nonstop beside me, who is taciturn. He hugged Wei Ran in his arms a little tighter. Actually, I really don't know and I can't pursue it. It's just that seeing you talking to other boys will annoy me, and it will disturb my heart when you quarrel with me and don't talk to me. Suddenly there is one day when I think that the person standing next to you holding your hand is not me, the person kissing you is not me, and the person sleeping next to your pillow is not me. I can't stand it, and even want to kill that person. I have my heart. Sin and ending. Instant. The gradually clear light of the vast and boundless sky is connected with the endless sea, slowly rising and blending with the morning light. A ray of dazzling gold pierced the darkness in silence, and gradually sprinkled over his and her faces. Wei Ran, I love you. Loving you for so many years is the most romantic thing I've ever done in my life. Suddenly, he felt his thumb was wrapped in warmth and softness. With the other hand, he lifted the blanket and looked down. Wei Ran's hand gently grasped his thumb. Wei Ran still closed his eyes tightly, but there was still tenderness in his eyes, even more so. He lowered his head and kissed her lips. Wei Ran, who was sleeping deep inside, also looked into the distance in the vast expanse of whiteness and seemed to be able to see the golden light as well. The clear and clean eyes were red, and the tears couldn't stop falling silently, and he said softly, I love you. This was the first time Music King told the past, and Wei Ran never said anything about it. I know every word of Music King's heart about that year. Think deeply about it. If it was the previous Music King, he would never say a word about these things. He was originally a reserved and cold person. Now he speaks out, for one reason only. No one knew when Wei Ran would wake up. It was actually a kind of painful torture for her. She was conscious but did not wake up for a long time, so he was conveying a meaning to her. You are trapped, and I am also trapped in a cage called Wei Ran. Only if you hold on can I survive. In the next few days, Music King noticed that Wei Ran's interactions increased. Not only would the hand hold him occasionally, but the small expressions on his face also changed. After Music King fed her a bowl of soup, and when the tissue was wiped for her, the corners of her mouth slightly raised, he bent his index finger and lightly scratched the bridge of her tall nose and said, dotingly, what's wrong? So happy Wei Ran moved his finger, Music King handed it over, and her index finger slid down the back of his hand. Music King spread out her palm again, put her index finger in it, and found that Wei Ran was actually writing stroke by stroke in his palm. Elder brother. Anne. Music King smiled. These 2 words should be to tell him that she is fine and make him feel at ease. Okay, I see. Ran is great. Then Wei Ran wrote another word, which made Music King laugh for a while. Because what Wei Ran wrote was fat.